Yemen is pounded by a fresh wave of Saudi airstrikes as Riyadh launches a new anti-rebel offensive just hours after ending the last one.
There are hundreds of people waiting there, Americans, Russians, Ukrainians, even Britons, and the fear now is that not all of them will be allowed onto the plane. There's simply not enough space.
And US citizens escape war-torn Yemen on Russian planes, with Washington still saying it can't evacuate them. Rage against the police. Protests continue unabated in the city of Baltimore, with people demanding to know how a 25-year-old black man died while being held in custody.
I mean, it hurts. It costs jobs, it costs trade volume, but that's what we do. First comes politics.
Economic and political leaders from Lisbon to Vladivostok meet in Berlin to discuss the EU's future and that of sanctions against Russia. Your worldwide news live from Moscow, where it's now just after 12 o'clock noon on Thursday. I'm Rory Souchet. Welcome to your news. Warplanes sent by Saudi Arabia have carried out more bombing runs into Yemen, targeting Houthi rebels in the south of the country. And the airstrikes were ordered just hours after the end of a bombardment named Decisive Storm had been declared over. And this time the targets were the supply compounds of Houthi rebels, as well as the headquarters of a military brigade that has been seized by Houthis. Now, the bombardment from above and the fighting on the ground has left foreigners desperate to flee the country. Throughout the weeks of bombings, RT has been in touch with numerous US citizens trapped in war-torn Yemen, and this is how they described it then.
Every other day, a few bombings a day. So it's very, very scary right now. Nobody has helped us to evacuate.
I mean, I hear everything that goes on. We hear gunshots, we hear bombs, we hear airstrikes. I've been at home stuck for like two weeks.
I am stuck, like you could say, I'm in the middle of Yemen. There's like a 5-hour drive from here to Sana'a, and there is no transportation, there is no gas here. Me personally, I'm kind of, you could say, mad at the U.S. because we are American citizens and we never heard anything from them.
The US government, though, said there is no plan for an evacuation in place, telling its citizens to try and find other options. And the State Department is offering little else in terms of advice.
Since the embassy closed, what do people do? What can they do?
Well, there's a couple things they can do. They can go to another embassy in the region.
But getting there is something that they have to do themselves.
Well, and we've been actively providing them with information about opportunities to do so, bringing them to their attention, and then once they get there, providing them with additional consular assistance.
A number of Americans, though, did manage to flee onboard planes organized and coordinated by the Russian embassy. RT's Murad Gazdiev was on one of the very latest flights that took Russians and foreigners out of the conflict zone.
As we touched down in Yemen, one thing soon became clear. The faster we took off again, the better.
People's possessions are now being loaded onto the plane. They themselves are behind us at the terminal buildings over there. They should be over any moment now, but apparently there are hundreds of people waiting there. Americans, Russians, Ukrainians, even Britons, and the fear now is that not all of them will be allowed onto the plane. There's simply not enough space.
People we hadn't even contacted showed up. I saw someone with a British passport. We'll take them all.
Security is security, but in these chaotic times, they find themselves making exceptions.
We try to be understanding where we can. For example, if someone's passport is expired, we can process them in Moscow.
Well, boarding has begun. People are being ferried over from the terminal complex and are entering the plane. They're checking their passports right now. But not everybody made it. Many people couldn't make it to the airport in the first place because of bombed out roads, because of lack of fuel. So a lot of desperation here as well. People are missing family members.
Others got lucky, making it by the skin of their teeth.
My cousin, he contacted us from US and he get hold of the Russian airport, whatever. I don't know how he do that contact with them, and he called us
And he told us yesterday, all we know about this yesterday. So we came from the village, and it's like 5-hour drive. We crossed the bridge. 20 minutes later, there is a missile hit that bridge we crossed.
I couldn't make it out, so I had to wait. It took me about 3-4 weeks to find a flight out of Sana'a. I started calling airlines, agencies, UN, Russian embassy.
Were there no American planes?
No. Americans, no. They just kept sending us emails.
And those apparently weren't all that useful.
And they said, basically, find your way out.
How?
Any other means. The Russians, the UN, the IOM, the Indians.
Soon enough, 2 packed planes filled with international refugees left Sana'a for the African coast. We arrive in Djibouti, host of America's biggest military base on the continent. The relief was palpable. But why had people taken so long to leave Yemen, a place they themselves said was a nightmare?
But why didn't you leave when you got the travel warning from the U.S. consulate?
Well, I had the trip, but the war starts before it in 2 days, so they said there's no more trips, no more flights, so yeah, I was just tight.
So you left on a Russian plane instead of an American one?
Yeah, I mean, there was no American plane, only the Russian plane. They called me. I mean, all I'm trying to say is thank you very much to the Russian embassy because they called me and wanted to help me out.
But many still have loved ones trapped in Yemen.
I have to think about the next step to make sure that my family is safe. This is priority for me. So I will try my best to get them out of Yemen. And if we can, like, start a new life somewhere else until, you know, things settle down a little bit in Yemen.
But as the conflict rages on, just when that will be is anybody's guess. Morad Gazdiev, RT.
There have been a total of 9 flights sent by Moscow dispatched to get people out of Yemen. A total of over 1,000 people from 20 countries have now been taken to safety. We did speak to a U.S. citizen who says the Russian planes were ultimately the only chance for evacuation.
I've been trying to evacuate them for the last month and a half, and I've been unsuccessful through OIM, trying to get the State Department to cooperate with the community. We got involved with the White House Office of Engagement. They also procrastinating and taking a very slow process. And nobody really helped until recently. I was contacted by one of our community members that a Russian plane is evacuating American citizen. So I got lucky, and I have very young children that left to Yemen for the first time in their life to their ancestral home. Unfortunately, they were traumatized in Yemen, and I would really want to thank the Russian government from my heart to really help my family out.
Well, other Americans are still stuck in Yemen. We spoke to one man who is trying to bring trapped U.S. citizens back home. He says it is getting harder every day.
We have so many Americans that are still trapped in Yemen. We were finally able to evacuate some people through an individual work, through an assistant of others, whether it's an organization or other commercial that we had before. Americans are really in a bad situation. Some people are still stuck at home. They don't know their way around. Some people might have some connections here and there to be able to get them through the board. Some others were able to escape through Djibouti. We try to bring media attention and public awareness as much as we can.
And for more on the plight of the U.S. citizens, as well as their personal accounts from the conflict region, of course, in Yemen.